أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الكريم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. I'm excited to be here with all of you today to talk about a topic that's very near and dear to my heart. It's something that I have been studying and living and really thinking about for more than 25 years. And excited to share a little bit of information about the research, and I think Dr. Rania will continue talking about some of the research that she's been doing. But I want to start off with kind of reminding us of what's going on these days, right? Pre-pandemic, we had 1 in 5 children report mental health issues in the US. Right? And 1 in 3 children are reporting persistent sadness. And we've gotten to the point where the issues and challenges, and this is mainstream, and then I think Rania will talk about a little bit what's going on in the Muslim community, but the reality is many of the issues and challenges facing mainstream are impacting our young people today. So issues of mental health are issues that we need to be thinking about and really intentional when we're talking about our youth, when we're working with our youth, when we're parenting our youth. And so that's what we really want to talk about today. And as we start, because I know sometimes when you're sitting in these lectures and you're hearing, it's easy to fall asleep. It happens, even to the best of us, even with our intentions. So I'm going to ask you to take out your phones and enter and text 22333. Don't worry, I won't get your number. It's all private. But text 22333 and enter Sameera Ahmed 180. You guys got that? Enter Sameera Ahmed 180. And what we're going to do is I'm going to ask you a series of questions. And I want you to respond to kind of, have that on back and forth conversation, because when you have a big group, it's a little bit harder to do that. Okay? So everybody got that? Text 22333, enter Sameera Ahmed 180. Can I move on? Okay. So what are the youth mental health issues you are seeing, either with your kids, with other youth that you're working with, if you're teaching, with the kids that you're teaching? So write in a phrase and let's kind of see collectively what's going on, right? So again, you text 22333 and Sameera Ahmed 180. And what you'll do is you'll see that come on here, assuming I'm connected to the internet. It looks like I'm not. Okay. I apologize. I think I forgot to connect before we did it. Anyways, anybody want to share some of what they're seeing? Just raise your hand. Social skills, lack of identity. Anxiety. Suicide. Yes, we were in a community a few weeks ago, and parents said things are great in mental health, and 80% of the students said that they thought about suicide. Right, go ahead. Anger issues. ADHD. Insecurity. Depression. So a lot of different things that we're seeing. And so as a community, we see these things individually. But what we do at the Family and Youth Institute is we identify these issues that you all are seeing. And what we try to do is then do the research. Okay, is this an individual thing, or do we see a pattern across the nation, right? And so we do the research, but knowing the problem is not as helpful as knowing the solution, right? So the next stage of what we do is try to develop the solutions to the problems we're all seeing. As we do that, once we know what the solutions, what's the protective factor, what's going to help the community, we then work on developing resources. Resources such as workshops, resources such as information, articles, etc., so that you and I, who are working with our kids, can do something about that and make change. And so that's where we get to the implementation, where we're sharing this information. And as we share this information, we want to know, is it working? And so when you give us feedback in this convention that this is great, we really like this, if you share with us what you liked and what you didn't like, and Amina over there in the front is willing to hear that and share that with you. When you tell us what works, when you ask the questions you ask on the app, we take that information and we try to provide more resources for you, right? So it's a very much a community-centered approach. So when we look at the research on Muslim youth, we find there are a number of different issues. And again, the research in the field on Muslim youth is, in Muslim mental health in general, we're still at the infancy stage. So as we're finding this information out, we're finding that, at least almost 20% of young people are experiencing different mood disorders, and very similar to like depression and anxiety compared to mainstream. You see, adjustment issues, ADHD that you mentioned, anxiety disorders. These are the same issues that you see in general society, you're seeing with our youth, right? And what we're seeing is when you compare our young people compared to non-Muslim youth, it's the same. And so as parents, we also need to understand, okay, what are the different factors that are impacting the mental health issues facing young people? Again, when we do the research, we find that identity is an issue. Young people are struggling to balance their identities, and when there is that struggle, the greater the struggle, the greater the feeling of not belonging to any one community, the greater the issues kind of mismatch, you have more issues of mental health. And it makes sense. If you don't belong, if you can't connect, if you're really not sure who you are, there's greater confusion, right? In addition to that, there's issues of discrimination. We see that almost half of high school students and more than half of college students have experienced religious discrimination, either real or perceived. But the reality is it has an impact on your sense of safety and sense of well-being. And when you do that, there are certain groups who have experienced it more. When we look at our Black Muslim youth, when we look at our sisters, our young women who are visibly Muslim, they tend to experience discrimination more. And discrimination in itself often results in greater mental health issues. How do you deal with this? The trauma, the confusion, the depression, right? And one of the factors that really hurts our young people is when as parents, we're not supporting them in the process, right? When there's lack of warmth in the relationship, lack of support, ma'alesh, get over it. Like everybody goes through it. Like that kind of attitude doesn't help them. It doesn't help kind of see the experiences, what they're going through. Over-controlling also makes it hard for them to understand. Yes, we need guidance, but over-controlling each move and all that becomes problematic. As is the other end where there's total laxity, right? So really understanding that how we parent also impacts young people's ability to cope with discrimination, to deal with life issues, to kind of navigate the challenges, to really avoid risky behaviors. Now, these are kind of the problems and the challenges and why they're happening. Now, this obviously the poll isn't working, so I apologize. What we do know is our solutions. Okay, these are the problems, these are the factors. What do we know works, right? And when we look at the solutions, where do people go for help? Number one group of individuals are parents. As ineffective that we think that we are, and as we think our kids don't listen to us, they go to us for help, right? And when we look at the research on factors that prevent risk behaviors, such as alcohol use, premarital sexual activity, drug use, the number one factor that serves to prevent this type of activities is the parent-child relationship, right? And so, one, we need to address the parent-child relationship and enhance our relationships. We also need to really recognize what specifically about the relationship matters, right? So one of the things that's extremely important is positive communication and quality time. As a parent, we're all stressed. We've got 20 million things going on. We're trying to get the house done. We're trying to do work. We're trying to keep things going. But how are we talking to our kids, right? Think about how the Prophet ﷺ spoke with Fatima radiallahu anha. She came into the room. He would stand up out of respect and love. He would create space next to her. He would see her and be so excited and happy, right? When as a parent, we express that love and that affection, that has an impact on our kids. They realize that they're valuable. When we give them that quality time, and despite the fact that we're busy, we say, you matter. I want to talk. What's going on in your day? How are things happening? And you may be busy when they want to talk to you, right? But can you either at that time sit down and talk, or say, Habibi, I really want to talk to you, but I've got to do this stuff. Beta, let me just work with you. Can we talk in half an hour when I can give you my undivided attention, right? That tells them that they matter and that you want to spend time with them. And what we find is those strong family connections reduce chances of depression by 40%. 40%. And suicidal thoughts by 58%. So we don't realize how important that communication and that relationship is. And youth who receive some autonomy from parents tend to have a stronger Muslim identity. What do I mean by that? As parents, we want to guide our children. We want to show them the wisdom that this deen has for them. And we need to give them space to grow. We cannot expect them to be carbon copies of ourselves. We have to give them the space to grow, learn, ask questions, and support them in their development. And when we look again, the prophetic approach, we see how parents' supportive conversations make a difference. It helps them navigate through difficulties. When they have issues, think about it. When Fatima radiallahu anha had issues, who did she go to? She went to her dad. Whether it was conflict, whether it was fatigue and exhaustion and housework, or it was talking to, having marital conflict, or whatever it is, her dad was the one that she went to. And so for dads, one of the things you don't realize is how powerful your impact has on kids' development. Particularly young ladies. You are their model of what a man should be. So how you treat her, how you treat your wife, will set the pattern for what she expects is the norm for her husband, right? And parents' conversations strengthen their well-being, strengthens their identity, and decreases the likelihood of risk behaviors. Because if that connection is strong, our kids don't want to violate the trust. And when they break that trust, it's that trust that will bring them back. It's that relationship, it's that connection. So recognize that. And because this communication and this relationship is so important, as part of the solutions, the FYI has 9 different research-based parenting workshops just for you, right? To really understand the varying different aspects of the relationship to help develop those relationships and strengthen it even more. In addition to those workshops, we have all of these articles, all of these resources, infographics, videos, toolkits, all the different issues that you and I struggle with as parents. They're there at your fingertips, 24 hours a day, whenever you need it, free, right? And so if you want those resources, you can scan the QR code, and there should be a QR code that's being passed around. On the QR code, you'll see the website, you'll see a bunch of these resources. Use those resources, they're created for you, right? And then when you think about, that's from the parenting perspective. From the community perspective, it's not just about our families. We need to create safe spaces for our youth. Yesterday, we talked about some of the research that we're doing in terms of dealing with the unmasked phenomena, where a lot of young people are not having that sense of belonging in the masjid. How do we increase that sense of belonging? And so from a community perspective, we need to create those safe spaces. What is it about our community that makes some young people feel they belong, right? It's those positive social interactions with friends and mentors, where they feel that they matter, that there's a space where they can connect with individuals who are like them and with them. And it's a positive communication, right? It's positive reactions. Having high quality after school activities at the masjid. I look, for my own kids, we were at one community at one time and the kids would run to the masjid because of the culture of the masjid. And you go to a masjid, another masjid, we don't want to go to the masjid. What's going on in the culture of the masjid? We need to think about that. What are the changes? What do we need to do? It's the interactions with the caring adults, not just your parents, but the khalas and ammus. Like the ammus, what are they doing? The uncles, what are they doing? Like how do they treat them? Do they welcome them? Do they smile? The little things make a difference, those caring interactions. And really involving young people in mental health. Like this pandemic has really impacted young people. Giving them the tools for coping with what they're going to encounter. How do you deal with these issues? These are all different things. And again, what we have for the communities is multiple different resources, but we actually have a Mentoring Muslim Youth workshop, 2-day workshop that really goes through this in detail to help a community. Not just the community spaces, we also need to help develop young people, empower them. Again, when we look at the Prophet ﷺ, we look at how did he create these leaders? He had the connection. In addition to the connection, the relationship, and the teaching, he created safe spaces and allowed them to try different things, lead. And they made mistakes. And he was okay with that. He corrected them. He worked with them. So recognizing when you do that, you're able to nurture their self-confidence. You're able to help them realize that they can make a difference, that they help them believe in themselves. And you help them recognize their ability to accomplish their goals, right? So, and helping them realize when they make mistakes, it's okay. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will still be there for you. He will still love you. And there is a path towards repentance. And let us help you through that path of repentance. What can you do? Because sometimes those mistakes are the very things that bring you closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so helping Muslim youth recognize that they have these abilities and helping them realize that there are multiple ways to belong. Maybe in their community they don't belong. Can we create another community for them? Can we connect them to other resources where they feel like they belong and they can make an impact? Again, as parents, we really want to think about that. Where does my child belong? How can we create those belonging environments where they feel empowered, right? And in addition to that, we need to give them skills. One of the skills that we really struggle with in addition to the mental health is marriage education, marriage preparation. So the FYI has multiple different resources for young people. But one of the things that we really want to make sure you as parents are aware of, or mentors, is that we have a new online course called Prepare to Pair for individuals. We have one program, one set of resources called the Pre-Marriage Toolkit, which is before you're even thinking about marriage and as you're going through the process. This is for when you think you have somebody in mind and you're serious before you get engaged or when you're engaged, a course for that. And really to help couples really go through and understand for their specific relationship, what does that look like? So you can find more information there. But again, all of this is important. It's going to make a difference if you make that difference, right? We're providing you the resources. We're providing you the research. You need to use it. You need to let your community, your friends know that these resources exist and to share them. And that's where you're going to have that change, igniting that change, because you can work in your family, but you also need to create a community that is youth-centered and that promotes youth development. And so when we have those pieces in place, that's when we can make a difference and can help promote Muslim youth development. And so if you want additional resources and information, you can follow us at the FYI. And if you scan the QR code, you can find additional resources. And again, we would love to hear more feedback about how you're using the resources so that we can develop more resources. Jazakallahu khair. Assalamu alaikum.